A thread by Pat Scopoliti. 7 December 2020. MAGA analysis. Hashtag Levin saves America. We're in historic real time. Today's work will have even more moving parts than usual, but one part more important than any other is last night's Mark Levin show historic transformational episode. That Mark is a hero almost goes without saying. He is, but I had almost lost faith in him last week. Watched about 3 minutes and turned to another entertainment. Why? There is only one story in America today. If you're not talking about election fraud, you're not worth the time. The MAGA movement enters our story here. Fox's ratings have hit lows that did more than stun the executives. It even inspired some real thinking. I don't know the editorial process. I do know they cut Mark loose last night, and he took the ball and ran all the way. To my eye, Mark is at his best when he combines his masteries of law, history, and most especially the Constitution. We are at a turning point. Mark explained to us that this is the fight now. We cannot wait for the next fight. This is what we're here for, this fight. Now. We don't read pamphlets out loud in taverns and coffee houses today as we did in 1776. We watch TV and we read and comment here in social media. Last night's show was, however, in the same category as Thomas Paine's Common Sense and American Crisis. I don't know how many millions watched the episode, eyes glued. I don't know how many millions more it will reach here online. I do know that none of us have ever seen anything like it in our lifetimes. Nothing. Maybe Paul Revere's ride, right? Like that. Something we've all known for decades is that if it isn't on TV, it didn't happen. A landslide election was controverted, stolen by the most massive voter fraud in American history. We know it now differently. Mark acknowledged it, proved it. It's real. It was on TV. I can't tell you how mopey I've been, angry, raging, sad, heartbroken. Fox was a force for good in our lifetime, but it betrayed us. It did worse than merely lose its mission. It embraced evil. Its betrayal was far worse than the rest of the mainstream media. Fox became traitors. At the start of this election season, I was enraged over Drudge's betrayal, but well, it was just Drudge, a conglomerator of other people's news online. I used it countless times with scorn, demonstrating the idiocy of the evildoers. Fox's loss was different, more important. But then came Mark last night. Massive voter fraud on a scale beyond anything in American history. Who remembers Sam Giancana and the 1960 Illinois vote for JFK? I know many of you love JFK, but if you check it, it was a stolen election. Then an assassination, and voila, LBJ and his great society. I don't blame, although I might easily be wrong, voter fraud for either Clinton or Barack Obama, but JFK and LBJ, come on. The Democrats are good at voter fraud. We have to face that truth. But Mark explained to us that November 3rd, 2020 was something else. And we know why. The left needs and cannot live without a broken America. Just as Trump killed the World Trade Organization and is strangling China, he is also absolutely draining the swamp. The two are not separate activities. Trump has altered the makeup of the Supreme Court as no president in memory. SCOTUS no longer belongs to the cabal. It will no longer write law. I believe that Scalia was assassinated. Imagine that I'm right, and that is what led to the loss of SCOTUS. Justice. Many of you have followed my honorable failure at polling and remember that I never published my data due to its massive slant for Trump from every sector. I didn't have enough or strong enough data to believe what it said. Link in the thread to betweenthelines.vote. Honest questions, honest answers. I think it says honest polling. Logic, intuition, and instinct are meaningful inputs, but you can't run polling by them. Still, I absolutely did know, as did you, that you can't run against the most successful president in our lifetimes by looting and burning, rage and destruction. They had nothing. As we roll forward, Mark explained, the data is coming in now, and the data does not add up to even the possibility of a Biden victory. It stinks to high heavens, polluting our polity, and it is on us to do something about that. We'll dive into that more in a moment. Before we do, engrain this little schematic onto your mind, heart, and soul. Knowledge leads to action. Certain knowledge leads to unstoppable action. I'm going to tell you a true story now, backing that schematic up. We'll come back to knowledge and action here in 2020, 2021. We got the diagnosis of autism for our son Anthony while we were living in our dream spot, forever home, we wrongly thought, in Aptos, California. Once that was in, we discovered our school district had simply nothing that could meet his needs. So we began exploring. With our large family, leaving California was not yet an option, so we looked up, down its great length, and eventually found a 2-year program for Anthony in Modesto. We won't talk about Modesto. We were happy it was only a 2-year program, though. Still crazed over having to move, I did not want to get involved with all the parent stuff and activities. Kate Scopoliti was both wiser and more courageous, and without me, she did. She discovered a dire situation. There were 11 other families with needs requiring our help. We were traveling all over the US looking for Anthony's next program. Those 11 families, for various reasons, couldn't leave as we were going to, and they couldn't organize or work with the school districts involved. Kate decided they had to have me involved. Obviously, I got involved. We organized. I became the leader of our efforts, and Kate and I ended up on a committee of both educators and parents' representatives. While I never formally ran the meetings, I ended up actually running all the meetings and the entire effort. We did every bit of homework required, and we did a great job. At one point, though, they crossed the line, the educators did, and I quit for about 3 days. With all the families behind me, I got the call and they came back in line. Once finished, we had a proposal for a classroom for autistic children. It became the very first of its kind in California. Other states had already done so, but none like the one we created. Anthony attended it for 6 weeks before we moved to his next program in Boston, Massachusetts. Once we had the educator parents proposal completed, it had to be presented to the school district's board. The teachers on our committee asked me to do the presentation, and I did. And oh my, what a learning experience that was. It was obviously a money meeting, and millions upon millions of dollars of this and that were approved and put into the coming year's budget. Our program was $1.5 million, and it got approved. It was the highest budget for any classroom in California history at the time. Specifically, it was $300,000 per year for 5 years. It was the right thing for them to do, 100%. So, that's not what shocked me so from the meeting. Although just 10 months previously, when I got involved, I could never have dreamed of such a thing. What most shocked me was what the meeting chair announced when opening the session. He explained that this was an open session, that any member of the public might attend and offer business for the board's consideration freely. Anyone could attend and speak. I had been coached, and I raised my hand and announced our proposal, which they all already had in hand, so no one was surprised. But get this, Kate and I were the only other people there other than the board members. Anyone could have been there, but no one else was. I had never been involved in anything like that before and had no idea that that was how government operates. It still boggles my mind. I was 35 years old and had never had the slightest idea about the real workings of government, nor the power I held in my voice. I bet you've figured out where I'm going and why I'm sharing, but if not, I'll explain below directly. I mentioned a couple of days ago a conversation I had with David Shestokas about a voter fraud case in Pennsylvania where he was an expert witness. He shared that there were about 300 patriots there when he walked in and what that meant to everyone involved in the case. He shared as well that many hours later there were still around 50 people there, cheering him and the rest of the team on, thanking them. When the court session ended, they walked out. Imagine the meaning of that investment of time and presence by those patriots. Watching Mark's show last night, the vision became clear to me. There will be events coming. First, we have to have knowledge of the facts, the truth, knowledge of the dates and places. Then we must organize. Listen to what my friend Econ Chick Intel Chick says on point. I've listened to Mark Levin for 10 years plus, mostly on the radio. This show he did tonight might be the most powerful one I've ever heard from him. I agree with his bottom line. We can't talk about next time. We have to fight for this one because there won't be another time. Pat continues. Following Mark's lead, Econ Intel Chick tells us we cannot talk about next time. We have to fight this one because there will not be a next time. We have to fight this fight now.
I will be the greatest president that God ever created.